Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Brian Tann, and we are here for another edition of Tann Talks. What's going on, everybody? We're here for another week and another episode of The Last of Us. I'm your host, Brian Tann, and joining me, as she will be doing as we go through this first season of The Last of Us, is Melinda D. Melinda, how are you?
Doing good. Survived a big freeze down here in Texas.
Woohoo! Glad to see that you survived the ineptitude of your power grid.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, my background is going to look a little bit different. I just changed the office around. Of course, I tried to put some shelves up here to sort of showcase a little bit of my geekness, but I put them up a little higher than I anticipated. And
You
I
just
just,
got antlers sticking out of your head now.
yes, I do. Just call me Moose Man. Well, here, I can. So, there you've got, of course, the light, the glare of the lights in the way. But so I've got Battle Cat and Panther,
Nice.
Mando, and Grogu. My my dragon thing, and then of course the cake toppers from my 40th birthday, I think. So I got Han, Leia, Luke, Chewie, and of course you can't see Obi-Wan and Vader. And then of course this groovy Superman setup. When my cousin passed away, I got to get all of her movies and her husband's keepsakes, and since he was a huge Superman fan, I got to get like all of that stuff. So, pretty cool, pretty cool. Got it right over me.
I've got 2 shelves full of Assassin's Creed stuff.
Nice. I've got like all the games except Rogue, I think. And when I ever finally get time, I'm going to play them because I think the only Assassin's Creed games that I've beaten are I beat all of two, including the expansions, and I beat Black Flag. And that's it.
I have been playing the hell out of Valhalla.
Okay. See, I need to get more into because I enjoyed it when I first popped it in and I was so excited to play it, and then I'm just like, man.
All right, but did you play Odyssey? If not, play Odyssey first.
Play Odyssey first? Okay.
Just because there's a crossover in the DLC after you beat Valhalla. So if you get to that crossover and you haven't played Odyssey, you'll be like, who the hell is this character and what's going on?
Okay, cool.
And
I've got
Odyssey is
that one
a
too.
fantastic game. I mean, I've played all of them. I've played the mobile games. I've played the standalones, the handhelds. That is my jam. That and Legend of Zelda. Those are my two big ones.
Those are your things?
Yeah, I've got the comic books. Like I've got art. I've got framed art prints from when they did Assassin's Creed art in a museum in France. They're all signed and numbered. Like at
Yeah.
yeah. Do you want to see it?
Okay, yeah, sure. Why not? I showed my precious off, so why don't you show yours off? Go ahead. Holy
All right, so that's the first. That's the
damn.
first shelf. Right, and there's my Khal Drogo just kind of hanging out with the assassins. And that's the first art print is Ezio.
Holy crap.
And then on this side,
So when are we gonna get Assassin's Creed in Ireland or
shelf 2
Scotland? Ooh.
with all my other ones. And then there's the Altair art print from
See,
those are both from the museum in France.
See, the only reason why I can't tap dance with you is because you take your Funkos out of the box.
They're the only ones I took out of the box because they're the only ones I have. Other than
See, I won't.
Loki's out of the box and Drogo's out of the box because I had them at work.
See, I can't take
And
any. Only one of my Funkos that are out of the box are the ones that I bought like that. Like I have Angel, Spike out of the box because that's just the way I found them. And then I've got Amando out of the box because he was purchased to be put on my on the wedding cake. So
Right.
and then on the groom's cake, and then I have another Luke Cage and a Cinderella that are out of the box because they were cake toppers.
So mine were all in the box, all my Assassin's Creed ones. And then I actually have, so I always get the limited edition, like the stupid expensive versions because
Yeah,
they come with that statuette.
yeah.
And there was just no room. I've got statuettes like that are 2/3 on the shelf and a third hanging off because that's how little room there is on those shelves. So all of the boxes with the Funkos didn't fit. So it's just easier to take them out and kind of stick them in between
I, yeah, I guess. Oh, I have a crow. I have a crow that's out of the box too. I can't bear to take him out of the box. I don't know why.
And I think if you did, I would disown you because that is probably
Mhm.
my favorite movie on the planet.
I have two. I have two of them. One's in the box. What isn't? These are just the ones that are in my
Uh,
office.
the Crow is hands down easily my favorite movie in existence. I've got a
Oh yeah,
book. I've got a book signed by James O'Barr.
nice,
Um, that was all Crow based fiction. I've got the original printing of the comics.
nice.
Uh, yeah, so I have a few like niche nerd things that
Yeah,
most people are like, oh, really? That's your thing? Yeah, that's my thing.
yeah. That's my thing. If you don't like it, guess what you can do.
That's right.
So another thing that's becoming your thing now, though, is The Last of Us, and
Yes.
that's our advertised content for this episode 4. Please hold to my hand. Now, this episode sort of deviates. This continues to deviate away from the source material because this aspect of the game takes place in my hometown of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and it doesn't really give us any sort of personality of the villains of this episode, which I actually really like because not only because it's humanizing them, they're not so much villains, they are
Yeah.
survivors, just like Joel is.
Yep.
It's just they have their own perspective. And something else that is not really discussed in this genre, we especially did not see it in The Walking Dead, is the sort of the villainesque persona of Joel and him having to face it with Ellie, which I think was really, really cool. So
And Ellie too. Ellie had to face it
Ellie
herself
as
in
well,
her own
yeah,
self.
absolutely. So I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna read this. Well, yeah, I'm gonna read this sort of pseudo synopsis that is courtesy of IMDb. Um, for a Please Hold My Hand, and I'm actually gonna rant about the ratings of the show as episode by episode on IMDb in a second. Um, but it says here, after Joel and Ellie leave Bill and Frank's compound, they come across something that is even more deadly than the infected: people. Joel must protect Ellie at all costs, lest he relive what happened to his daughter all those years ago. Now that's courtesy of IMDb, and I think that that is really, really a very, very good sort of articulation of this episode and sort of the conflict that Joel is going through. Because you notice anytime once they left the compound, he was really, really edgy. And Ellie the whole time is trying to get him to just chill out just a little. And she even says, at one point when they're in the woods, when she asks, "Can I start a fire? It's cold." And he goes, "No. Can you tell me why?" "No, because the infected will see the smoke." "Not the infected.
Like the
People."
fungus aren't that smart. It's like, oh yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Right. Well, not to mention the fact that he also said that they're not going to be out that far in the woods. Why? Because that's not where the food source is.
Yeah.
But what would you have to be careful of? People.
People.
And he's not wrong. How many times have we seen in The Walking Dead? And it becomes even more apparent as the survivors get efficient at eliminating the walkers. It's the human element that they have to be careful of.
Yes. So did you ever read the book and listeners, if you haven't read it and you enjoy this genre of fiction, pick up this book and read it. One Day, I think it's called One Day Later.
Okay.
Let me make sure I'm giving you the correct title.
Okay.
Nope, that's a SpongeBob episode. Hold on. Um, okay, so the book is called 1 Second After. So you can see my confusion. It's a trilogy now. I've read the first one. I've read the second one. I have to read the third one. And without giving too much away, it's a fictional apocalypse, but it's
Okay.
not a supernatural fictional apocalypse.
Okay.
So it's something that could absolutely happen anytime in the next 5 minutes if it happened, right? And I'm not giving anything away. It's an important plot point of the book, but it's not supernatural apocalyptic fiction. But it's the same thing. It's you start with these pockets of survivors, and then the biggest problem isn't the environment. The biggest problem is people.
Right. Oh, yeah. And I just found this. I found it on Audible.
It's such a
Once
good book.
so 1 second after is the first book,
Yes.
and the
And
second
then
book.
it's 1 year after.
Okay, I just found that one. That's going on the wish list, and then the
And
last one, the
the
final
last one I think
day.
is the final day. So it's 1 second after takes place just before the event happens, and then the rest of what happens after 1 year focuses more on the rebuilding, like the rebuilding of government and
Okay.
what that looks like after this happens.
Okay.
Um, and I have not read the final day, so I can't speak to that, but I did read the first two.
Okay.
But again, I only went on that rabbit hole because it's the same thing. It's not the environment. I mean, they do touch on that.
Right. I mean, obviously,
Realistically,
the
like,
environment's going to be an issue, but
yes, like
once you
centralized medicine goes down. How do you get insulin for diabetics? And a
right,
toothache is going to take people out because how do you get systemic infection from a tooth infection, right? So they
right,
do go through that. But ultimately, once that wipes out majority of people and causes a problem, the next biggest problem is people, other groups
right,
of people.
right, absolutely. And I mean, we have seen that. We've seen that in The Walking Dead. We've seen that as far back as in the Romero movies. You check out Dawn of the Dead. Once they got efficient in killing off the dead, and they walled off everything, the dead were outside. They weren't a problem. What did become a problem? When the raiders showed up.
Even in
And
real life, when
mhm,
COVID happened and everybody was hoarding toilet paper and you couldn't get a can of soup,
yeah,
I mean, it's a less dramatic because we're not killing each other over,
yeah,
hand sanitizer and masks and toilet paper anymore. But
yet.
I mean, right. But at the time, it was very much like you had pockets of people who were, let me help, I've got extra, who needs? And other people who are,
Mine,
go
mine,
out and buy.
mine.
Right. And what could you possibly need 8,000 rolls of toilet paper? How is toilet paper going to save you in the apocalypse?
I
Kind of thing,
remember.
right?
I remember I had an ex girlfriend, and this was pre Y2K. Their spare bedroom was nothing but hoarded, like toilet paper, bottled water, like essentials and non-perishable food items. Like she would go to Sam's Club and buy, like every month she would go to Sam's Club, and she had been doing it for like once Y2K even became a thing. She would go to Sam's Club and buy like these non-perishables in bulk. And that room was to a point where, yeah, it was, you couldn't, like, she had like a little path that you could walk in, but that
Mm.
room was wall to wall stuff. One section was paper products, one section was, I'm like, holy shit, this woman is nuts. I wouldn't surprise me if she had a bunker under the house.
See, I'm
But
not I'm not knocking the survivalists like Bill and Frank because we talked about
no,
that last
not at all.
episode, right?
Not at
It's
all.
it's and the people who do that in real life, because I'll be the first to admit I've got like little bits of stuff put up, right? Not to that extent, but it's the people who are predatory about it.
Yes.
Because there's something to say about trading, right? Like I've got toilet paper and you've got can of soup, and I need a can of soup, and you need toilet paper, so let's swap.
Let's
I'm
swap.
not talking
Yeah.
about that. Those mini micro communities. It's the predatory people. I have toilet paper. You have toilet paper. I'm
But
going
I
to come
want
kill
your
you
toilet
over your
paper.
toilet paper.
Right.
Those are the
And
people that I think become the threat, and that's
or
what
in the
Joel is
real
finding
world.
out.
Right. Or even in our real world, we've got people that are fighting each other, and we have people fighting, fist fighting in stores for paper products. Like they're fist fighting.
Yes.
Remember when Tickle Me Elmo first came out, and people are fist
Yes.
fighting over Tickle Me Elmo.
Yep. I told my kids that because we watched Jingle All the Way for the Christmas season,
Yeah.
and they were laughing at that scene in the
It's like,
store where
bro,
the Powerballs, and they're like, they don't actually do that, and they're
yes, they
14 and
did.
8, so they don't remember. I said, but
Yeah.
when this came out, kids, there was a toy, Tickle Me Elmo, and that's what you had moms breaking each other's noses over this toy. And they were like,
People
really?
being
And so we went and watched clips from news, and they were just in shock. And they're like, but that's a toy. I said, yeah, now imagine if it was something you actually needed.
right. It's worse. And they even talk about this at one point, because at one point, and I know we're sort of flip flopping, but Joel even mentions that he and Tess in a group were raiders
Yeah.
at one point. They were doing, he even said we were doing what we needed to do to survive.
Survive. Yep.
And what's crazy is that like, because you never saw this in The Walking Dead. Rick and his group never did that.
No.
They didn't. Matter of fact, they there were multiple times where I'm like, how the hell did they survive without taking?
Yeah.
Because if you've ever
Nobody
played,
is that good all the time.
no,
Nobody.
never. I mean, I remember even in the Walking Dead Telltale game, where you have to make a choice where you find a car full of supplies and you have to make the choice to take the supplies because the car looks like it's abandoned.
Yeah.
And I remember one time I took it and I felt really guilty, but it was like, but my people need to survive. And that came back to bite you in the end. So
yeah, and I think that's a big thing that we talk about in like the social justice and social work world without getting to, whatever, is, and I said it, I think it was in the first episode, is when they go, well, they have a kid, and they go, well, so do we.
Right.
And it's nobody can survive on their own. We see that all the time in The Walking Dead and The Last of Us. If you've got onesies, twosies of people, you don't survive. You need community.
Right.
But how do you trust somebody enough to let them into your community? Because there's a 50-50 shot they're going to screw you.
Exactly. And you realize, and you even see sort of a revisit from the first episode when Joel and Ellie are driving. And there's a guy asking for help, and he goes, put on your seatbelt, and he's just flying through.
Well, it's a con man who recognized a con.
Well, not even just that, but it was still, con man recognizes con, but it was also when she asked, how did you know? And he just goes, well, we did the same thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, he knew, but at the same token, he did that in the very first episode because, well, I've got to take care of my own. Joel, and he even says it, and he sort of accepts his, I don't want to call it a shortcoming, but he accepts that character, that some people would see it as a character flaw. He doesn't trust anybody. He even brings that up. My brother joined the military because he wanted to be the hero. I'm more practical.
Yeah, and he's like, and then he did it again with the Fireflies. And
then he did it again with the Fireflies.
And I was like, okay.
Right. And so whether he knew that guy was a raider and that he couldn't trust him, or it was just, we have stuff that we can't share and I've got to get to Wyoming. For whatever reason, Joel was not stopping for shit. It just happened to be that this guy was a raider. Well, we think they're raiders. And then they're coming out, and Sharon actually watched this episode with me. I have to give her credit, man, because she's not really into this because she's worried that she's going to be scared. And it's like, well, it's not scary. It's more the human condition, which I guess can be more scary than monsters. Yep. Because we see no real infected in this episode. It's just people. And so they crash. Joel and Ellie crash because their tires are taken out. There goes your transportation. Now you're walking to Wyoming from Kansas.
Without all of those supplies.
Without your supplies. Yeah, you're screwed now.
Yeah.
And they get into a shootout. Joel tells Ellie, get away, go through that hole. Because you see that protective nature of Joel for Ellie at this point. And I was getting kind of mad because Joel, one of his shots fired and it took one of the guys out. You're going to pay! You're going to pay! Sharon and I both look at each other. I'm like, dude, you're attacking them.
Right. And then the one that killed me was, you see, because the shot is from behind. So you see Joel behind the car. And I think it's when Ellie starts to crawl away, or it might be when Joel starts to move. The guy in the green coat is hunched over his friend and is a dead clear shot over the hood of the car.
Right.
I'm like, Joel, stand up and take that dude out.
Right.
You don't have to go around the car. You're not hoping for magic bullets. They'll go through a window. He is standing in the open, checking on his friend. Shoot him.
I think the only reason why he didn't is because he didn't want Ellie to see him kill. I think that's why I think he didn't do it. Like from a Papa Bear perspective, which is what Joel is, as gruff and grouchy and mean as he is, he's a Papa Bear. He did not want Ellie to see him kill.
Yeah, I just couldn't remember if she was in the wall at that point, if that's when he was crawling away. I couldn't remember the exact sequence of those events.
I think he was checking to make really? He was checking to make sure that she got away. He was making sure.
Well, that makes sense.
And he didn't want her to look over and see him kill somebody. But yeah, but then this guy's like, you're gonna pay. You're gonna pay. You made me wreck my car. You were going to take my things, and I'm gonna pay for defending myself,
Yeah.
bro.
Yep.
And then, of course, now you want to know what pissed me off even more? What really made me mad is the one guy stole my name.
I saw that. I'm like, Bryan is gonna hit the roof 2 times when they said Kansas City, and I was like,
Mhm.
oh, he
I
was so
was not
excited about
happy.
Pittsburgh.
I really
Bryan,
was.
and we watch it with subtitles because I'm a little hard of hearing, and they spelled
Same.
it Bryan,
They
and I was like,
spelled it the
oh,
proper
he's
way.
gonna be so mad.
I was angry. I was number one. I was mad because they were in Kansas City. I was like, "Where in Pittsburgh does that look like?" Hey, and then when they said the name, I was like, "Oh, you spell it the proper way? How
Well, if it makes
dare
you
you?"
feel better at the end, because if you watch it on HBO Max,
Mhm.
they've got the clip at the end where they talk to the producers and stuff.
Yeah,
And they said they went with Kansas City instead of, they actually talked about why they did that.
I
Was
missed
because
that.
they could make Vancouver look more like Kansas City than they could make it look like Pittsburgh.
Yeah, if they were in Toronto, they could have made Toronto look like Pittsburgh, but you
Yeah. So
can't
if
make
that should make
Vancouver.
you feel better. Vancouver, which is, I mean, anybody who watches TV, spoiler, almost all your shows are shot in Vancouver.
Pretty much,
Um,
yeah.
all of
Pretty much.
Supernatural was Vancouver, Stargate was Vancouver, and they couldn't make Vancouver look like Pittsburgh.
Very
Pittsburgh is
true.
that unique that it had to be its own place. So
Absolutely. They would have
we've
had
got
to
a new
go
city.
3,000 miles east to
That's right.
Toronto, and well, why
So take
would
that
you
as a
do?
compliment. Pittsburgh
I
is so
do.
unique. They couldn't make generic town or generic area look like Pittsburgh.
That's a good point.
They
So
can
I
make it look
guess
like another planet, but they can't make it look like Pittsburgh.
that's true. They can make it look like hell, but they can't make it look like Pittsburgh. so so the kid is like, so this kid, other Bryan, is got the drop on Joel, and he's handling Joel, and then of course Ellie with her stolen gun in tow. Now I was yelling at Ellie playing it with the gun. Quit dry firing. Get your finger out of the trigger guard. What are you doing? And then she came out and she blasted this kid in his spine. And then he's begging, oh, we can talk. We can talk. Nah, kid. We're way
Yeah, I
past
can't feel
talk.
my legs. And I was like, ooh, that's a spinal injury right there.
That was a good shot by her.
Oh, yeah, that's a damn good shot.
Mm-hmm. And of course, he tells Ellie, go back in the hole because he's going to finish him off. And I think, I'm sorry, man, in the apocalypse, if you can't move your legs, it's way more polite for me to just kill you.
Yeah, that's game over.
Yeah. So we find out, we jump from there because now Joel and Ellie are trying to find someplace safe to go. And we find that there's this woman who has, now keep in mind, these Kathleen and her party, they are alluded to, but they get no characterization in the games. And Kathleen is talking to a doctor, and this guy's now trying to plead with her. I was your doctor.
You.
Yeah, I delivered you.
I don't remember that. Sorry.
Well, I think at that point she don't care, man. She because she's like, nah, y'all gave us up. You gave us up. And she brings up, as soon as she brought up Henry and Sam, I'm like, ooh, how can you really are angry at kids like this?
And see, I had no clue. I'm like, who's Henry and Sam? I had no clue, or Henry. And I was like, I don't know who these characters are, having not played the game. So I'm thinking an adult, because I think the doctor even says that was Henry giving you up, or Henry's the one who squealed. So I assumed it was an adult.
Right. And well, Henry, of course, is the older brother. Sam is the younger brother.
So I assumed that was them at the end of the episode.
Yes, that was Henry and Sam. Yeah.
Yes, I had no clue until they went and found that stuff.
And I'll tell you what, spoiler alert, you are going to bawl your eyes out on Saturday. You are going to bawl. You are going to cry really, really hard. I'm just trying to prepare you. I'm trying to give you a couple of days to be prepared because it's going to hurt.
I got tissue somewhere around here.
Yeah, you're going to need tissue. You're probably going to have to get on with a therapist because
I need some emotional support cookies while I'm watching it.
Yeah, your feels are going to be kicked in the genitals.
Well, thanks for the warning. This way, at least, I'll make sure I don't do anything else sad that day. I'll save all of my sadness for them.
Yeah, you're going to need it. But of course, Kathleen's second in command, Perry, is played by the guy who is Tommy in the game. which
Okay, I knew they said he was in it, and then in the
yes,
clip at the end, he goes, "Playing Tommy was awesome," and I'm like, no, Tommy is the guy from Terminator, not you. And I
no,
that's
he's
how tired I
Tommy.
was last night. I did not put
Yeah,
the things
he's
together.
Tommy. Perry plays Tommy in the game,
Okay.
which is it's very it's gonna be very very interesting to see, you know, Troy Baker as because he was Joel, so that's gonna be an interesting to see as well. But I'll tell you what, the one thing that I really enjoyed about this episode was very straight to the point, and that's what I really appreciated, is how straight to the point it was, while still giving us characterization, and it gave us a lot of action coming off of an emotionally charged episode. But also, what I truly appreciated was the closeness that we're getting for Joel and Ellie, especially with the diarrhea joke, and she's trying to crack that exterior, and she finally did, which was so great. And
I about died falling off the couch laughing at that. And my husband turns around and he looks at me and he goes, "You have to tell that joke to Jack, my 14-year-old, because that is his kind of Jack." That's where I know her from. Sorry, I had to look on IMDb because the actress who plays Kathleen, she looked so familiar, and I could not place where I knew her from.
Where do you know her from?
From the movie Ever After from the late 90s.
See, I never watched it.
It's a really good telling of the Cinderella story. But she plays one of the stepsisters.
Oh.
And she plays one of she
was in Frighteners. She was in Frighteners. That's why I knew her.
But I saw her and I'm like, where do I know? And I could not place it until literally just now.
Whoa, she was in a movie. She was in a movie called Itty Bitty Titty Committee.
Of course you would find that one.
Yeah, of course I would. I mean, it's not my fault. It's there. I didn't name it.
Yeah, that's true.
But of course, yes, that's where my eyes went.
She made that diarrhea joke, and I about died.
I died laughing at that. That was so good.
It's funny. I see watching this show. It's a little different level for me because Ellie is the same age as my son.
Yes.
And my daughter's name is Ellie.
Which is
so
funny.
Watching Ellie, I'm sitting there going, and my husband and I look at each other and go, "That's our kid, right? Like that's exactly how she would act in this situation."
Oh, absolutely.
And
she's not going to be damsel in distress. She's going to be a little spitfire.
Yeah, my daughter is equal parts glitter, and I'll tear your throat out. So
that's awesome.
She is definitely Ellie from the game and the show. It's just she made that diarrhea joke, and I'm like, I gotta tell my kid this in the morning. We'll find it hysterical. And the algebra one, the mermaid wear. My son is doing. He just finished algebra and is doing geometry and science and math. So when I tell him that, he's gonna die.
That was great. I also really appreciated Ellie pointing out to him that she recognized that he was hard of hearing on his right side.
Mm-hmm.
And I even looked at Sharon. I said, "You ever notice that he always sleeps on his right side or on his back?"
Here's a little medical factoid for you. I just learned this because I'm learning ASL.
Mm-hmm. Sharon knows ASL.
I'm trying to teach myself. One of the people I follow on Facebook that he runs an ASL company. A lot of celebrities, like real life celebrities, who are hard of hearing or deaf, it's their right ear.
Because that's the most dominant. If you're right hand dominant, that side that hearing is going to fail you first, because especially if you're firing a gun. Because he even said from firing guns, because you're going to hold it on this side, on that side.
If you're born deaf in one ear, it is predominantly the right ear that loses hearing first.
See, it should be the left, because the left is the devil's side.
I mean, when I go to the range, I'm right in the middle. So I'm not sure how he's more deaf on the right than on the left from firing, because he's probably unless he's doing it one-handed.
He's either doing it one, but keep in mind he's very very proficient with a rifle.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say right. All right, yeah.
So he's holding it on that side.
Like handguns, you hold those right in the middle.
Most of the time with handguns, you are going to be center oriented, unless you're doing the military movement.
Yeah.
Then you're going to be on your dominant side. You're going to be on your dominant side. And I'll tell you what, shout out to John Barenthal's Punisher, because he does that a lot if you watch the Punisher shows. Sorry, Miss Odette has found her squeaky ball.
I took all of Kiki's squeaky toys out of the studio and I put them outside so she couldn't do that.
Well, see, I just happened to find this squeaky ball because I changed my entire office around. Because I had to move my fish tank from one end of the room. Give me this.
I was trying to watch Last of Us last night, and she would grab she's got a puppuccino squeaker, and she's chomping on that. I said, Doug, you picked the wrong time. So I had to keep it on the couch behind me. Mm-hmm. And then when the show was over, I
now I just took it from her. Now she's staring at me like, all right, Dad, I'm waiting for you to throw it. You're going to throw it. I know you're going to throw it. Dad? Yeah. So,
toy.
But yeah, John Barenthal's Punisher shows us that as well. Anytime, if you ever notice, go back and watch season 1 and season 2 of The Punisher. And whenever he's holding a weapon, how he holds it dominant side up. And
John Wick does that too.
John Wick does that as well. Absolutely. But no, the thing is with this episode is it's very, very character centric, but it's also a great, I don't even want to call this a transitional episode. But it kind of is because it's taking us from this really, really emotionally charged episode of Bill and Frank. Now we're starting to get into the meat and the potatoes of this journey. And this show has now it's been officially renewed for season 2. So I'm very curious to see. But that also means that not only do I have to play through the first game again, I have never played the second game. I do have the second game on my PlayStation. So now I have to play it.
I think I'm going to try to play them over the summer.
Yeah, because I think that we will have about a year or so. But
wait, does that mean I'm getting invited back to the podcast for season 2?
Yes, you will be. You are my Last of Us podcast host. Absolutely. But it's gonna be hard for me to get into it because I'm actually waiting on Hogwarts Legacy to come because I pre-ordered it. So I'm hoping it'll come tomorrow because I really want to play it. I even linked my my Wizarding World profile to my PlayStation profile because I am a Slytherin. I want to be in my Slytherin house and I want my freaking wand.
And then here's me sitting here waiting for the next episode of Final Fantasy VII Remake, turning gray
Same here.
by the minute.
Oh, I'm waiting for it too because I purchased it on Steam as soon as it was available. And then when I saw it was on PlayStation Network, because since I have the PlayStation Plus, I downloaded it instantly. So
that is literally the only thing I've played on PlayStation.
Is Final Fantasy.
It is, and the original one.
Get away from the microphone.
That's why I haven't played all of Last of Us because I'm not a PlayStation. We have one, I don't play it though. I'm an Xbox girl.
I love Xbox, but for whatever reason, man, PlayStation is coming back to me, and I think it's because I realize how much. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah, I like the Xbox controller because it's thicker and it's perfect for my larger hands. Where the PlayStation controller just feels way too tiny in my grip.
Well, see, I've got smaller hands than you, and I just like the weight. I have the Pro Elite 2 whatever controller, the fancy one, and I just got so used to its configuration that when I then go to hold the thing, it's like press X. I'm like, where's X? It's in a different spot.
X is now A.
Yeah, I'm like, where's the triangle? That's why I can't play on the Switch. We've got the controller for the Switch. I have a hard time because I'm like, I know where A, B, X, Y is.
Right.
I've got the muscle memory, and anyway, now that we've way digressed from the point of the episode.
Right.
Sorry for the rabbit holes today, y'all.
It's all good. So, looking at The Last of Us episode 4 has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That's from 6 critical ratings. And it's got an 8.7 rating on IMDb after 11,000 ratings. I'm actually currently getting ready to give it a 9. But what makes me mad, it's the second highest rating. Episode 1 and episode 2 both got 9.2 ratings. Our previous episode of Last of Us only got, let me double check and make sure I'm getting my numbers right, a 7.9.
Okay, here's my unsolicited, unfiltered homophobic assholes who were threatened or disgusted by or whatever. That doesn't fit
it doesn't fit what they want.
So it's easy to say this episode sucked, but if it had been this is just my opinion. If it had been a heterosexual couple
it'd be a 10.
It'd be a 10. And
I agree. And that's exactly what I was about to say.
Y'all can hate me for it. I know you and I agree on this. But I'm going to firmly stand in that camp. It has nothing to do with the episode and everything to do with.
I will climb that hill. I will put a campfire that is a place setter, and I will live and die on that hill, Jefferson style.
Yep.
All right, let's talk to Bartender Smiley, and we will get into our own personal ratings of episode 4 of The Last of Us, titled, where was it? I just had it. Where is it at? There we are. Please hold to my hand.
The Plotaholics rating system for the movies is a pretty simple system. Basically, they rate movies based on how many shots it takes to get through them. So if you got a good movie and you get through it all the way sober, then it takes 0 shots to get through the movie. And then if you got a really bad movie, then it could take up to 5 shots to get through the whole thing. I think you can try to figure out the middle part yourself. So, what can I get you?
All right, for me, I'm going to give this a 1-shot rating. It's really, really hard to come off such an emotionally charged episode like we had in the last one. But once again, an amazing job. Great writing. Granted, it still kind of irks me just a little bit that we weren't in Pittsburgh, that we're in Kansas City, Kansas. But when you're adapting for the screen, you have to take liberties. I totally get it. It didn't take me out of the episode. The ending was a very, very good ending because now you're on the edge of your seats. Great job. 1-shot rating for me, easily.
All right, I'm going to deviate. This is
Okay.
a 2-shot episode for me.
Oh.
The 1 shot I drank, the other one is sitting on the table and my hand is on it.
Okay.
Okay. So I had to kind of, because the last 3 episodes were so fantastic, and this one just felt a little slower. Like, I know it was paced, but it didn't tell as much story as the other 3 did for me. And I think every show, usually it's the second episode, right? Your first episode, we talked about this. First episode's fantastic. Your second episode, you have to have one to progress the story. So you're not going to have as much as you did. And that's what this episode felt like to me. It was still fantastic. The shots were great. It told the story. I loved the evolution that we're watching in Joel and Ellie. It just felt like it took.
It's just
I had a harder time. It was slower. It didn't have the emotional impact that the first 3 did. But I knew we were going to get to one of these episodes anyway, and not everyone can be a 10 out of 10 episode.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
For me, this was that one that's just, it was fantastic, but not quite the caliber of the first 3 for me in the storytelling, not production wise, but the storytelling.
No, and that's totally fair because, and you got to have, you need to have these transition episodes. You
Absolutely.
have to. So
it was great for what it was, but compared to the other 3 for me.
Correct. Yeah. It was great for what it was. It does a good job at continuing the story, but it's not one of those centric episodes that you're also going to hang your hat on. Right. This isn't that episode that's going to be a breakout type of thing.
Yeah.
All right, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, leave your comments below. If did we miss something? Did we touch on something that you want to continue to talk about? Leave it in the comments. Let us know. And we'll be back next Monday where we're going to talk episode 5 of The Last of Us, titled Endure and Survive. Like I said, if you played the games, you know to get yourself emotionally ready because this is going to be a doozy.
The trailer got me charged, so I'm excited for it.
All right. And as a matter of fact, make sure you keep yourselves on the ready because the next episode of the parent podcast, the Plotaholics podcast, is going to be coming today as well, where Shane Wilson and I are going to be talking Forget Paris, starring Billy Crystal and Deborah Winger. One of my personal favorites, actually.
I've never seen it. I'll have to watch it.
It's a great flick. I think you'll absolutely love it. I'll share it with you. All right. Like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about us, and we'll talk to you guys next week.